Barry Fairbrother did not want to go out to dinner. He had endured a thumping headache for most of the weekend and was struggling to make a deadline for the local paper. However, his wife had been a little stiff and uncommunicative over lunch, and Barry deduced that his anniversary card had not mitigated the crime of shutting himself away in the study all morning. It did not help that he had been writing about Crystal, whom Mary disliked, although she pretended otherwise. "Mary, I wanted to take you out to dinner," he had lied to break the frost. 19 years, kids. 19 years, and your mother's never looked lovelier." Mary had softened and smiled, so Barry had telephoned the golf club, because it was nearby and they were sure of getting a table. He tried to give his wife pleasure in little ways, because he had come to realize, after nearly 2 decades together, how often he disappointed her in the big things. It was never intentional. They simply had very different notions of what ought to take up most space in life. Barry parked the people carrier outside a club restaurant, the Birdie, and stood for a moment beside the car while Mary reapplied her lipstick. The cool evening air was pleasant on his face, as he watched the contours of the golf course disintegrating into the dusk. Barry wondered why he kept up his membership. He was a bad golfer. His swing was erratic and his handicap was high. He had so many other calls on his time. His head throbbed worse than ever. Then pain, such as he had never experienced, sliced through his brain like a demolition ball. He barely noticed the smarting of his knees as they smacked onto the cold tarmac. His skull was awash with fire and blood. The agony was excruciating beyond endurance, except that endure it he must, for oblivion was still a minute away. Mary screamed, and kept screaming. Several men came running from the bar. One of them sprinted back inside the building to see whether either of the club's retired doctors was present. A married couple, acquaintances of Barry and Mary's, heard the commotion from the restaurant, abandoned their starters, and hurried outside to see what they could do. The husband called 999 on his mobile. The ambulance had to come from the neighboring city of Garville, and it took 25 minutes to reach them. By the time the pulsing blue lights lit over the scene, Barry was lying motionless and unresponsive on the ground in a pool of his own vomit. Mary was crouching beside him, the knees of her tights ripped, clutching his hand, sobbing, and whispering his name. I'm guessing most of you have heard of a woman by the name of J.K. Rowling, right? You know, one of the biggest writers of our time, who became a major rags to riches story thanks to a little-known book series called Harry Potter. I'm sure most of you have heard of her. Of course, all book series come to an end. Once Harry Potter finished, everyone began to ask, what will she write next? Fast forward to 2011, where it was announced that she was working on a novel for adults. Which brought up the question, can she write a novel for adults? That's what we are looking at today. Hello Internet, welcome to Bookworm Reviews. I'm your host, the Bookworm, and this week we look at The Casual Vacancy by J.K. Rowling.
He's a real nowhere man, sitting in his nowhere land, making all his nowhere plans for nobody. Doesn't have a point of view. No.
In the small English town of Packford, one of its major citizens, Barry Fairbrother, has untimely passed away. His death rocks the townspeople to its core, some more than others. But as we dive into the lives of Packford, we see not everyone to be the good and wholesome people that you would hope a small town to be. All of this leads to a casual vacancy.
He said it!
The election for Barry's council seat, where people's lives hang in the balance, unraveling the dark political, social, and personal secrets of the people of Packford. You may see that I didn't talk too much about the characters outside of the one who dies in the prologue. Well, that is because this cast is huge. We're talking Game of Thrones level huge, people. There are at least 34 characters here, and they are all connected in some way, shape, or form to Barry's death. And it can be a negative sometimes. With so many that interconnect, some are pushed to the side for several chapters, that when they re-emerge can leave you going, wait, who's that? None of this shows more than in the beginning, where in each chapter they keep introducing us to more and more characters with motivations that will make you go cross-eyed. That is until we get 50 pages in. where we learn the history of Pagford. And then it clicks, turning a confusing beginning into a reading frenzy, making you want to read more and see what happens as we learn more about these characters and how messed up they are. Yeah, huge disclaimer here. This cast is one of the most unlikable you will ever read. Seriously, you can't really call anyone a good guy. Imagine if the cast of Game of Thrones meets Twin Peaks without as much weirdness. But you know what? I found this extremely fascinating because there is something here that we can relate to. Let's face it, humans are jerks sometimes. We can be self-absorbed, arrogant, egotistical, greedy, and who knows what else. I'm sure we all have known a Crystal Whedon or a Fats Wells, a Miles or a Tessa, a Simon, a Shirley, or even see a bit of yourself in these characters. On top of that, it throws every adult issue you could think of. The Casual Vacancy dives into issues of drug addiction, bullying, suicide, broken marriages, underage sex, pedophilia, racism, homophobia, abusive families, sexism, and so much more except the kitchen sink. Wait a minute. Found it. Of course, most people reading this will think, this is the same woman who wrote Harry Potter? Look, I can see how some people might feel betrayed by this book. People, I know JK has been a huge part of our childhood. I should know. But you are going to have to let go of Harry Potter when reading this. But it's Harry Potter. No. But Harry. No. Harry. No. It will only be unnecessary baggage. 'Cause I absolutely love this book. With this book, you truly see how amazing of a writer J.K. Rowling is. The same effort she put into Harry Potter is everywhere here. You could feel the passion she has in bringing this small town to life, with a cast, while unlikable, is still relatable into every sentence. Actually, I want to go off for a second to talk about something. You may know a while back I reviewed Catcher in the Rye, and most likely know I hate the main character. I didn't like his apathy to facing adulthood, or how from my point of view, he rarely changed. That is until I saw Crash Course talk about it, and made me think. I was pretty harsh with the book. I'd say I was ranting most of the time. It then made me think about Casual Vacancy, and how the two can be compared. You can see this is what Holden talks about when he means adults are phonies. Heck, Fats is pretty much a close example of a Holden in the book. I can't say I fully take back all of my complaints, but I have found new respect for Catcher. What I'm getting at is that while this book can be unlikable, that doesn't mean there isn't a poignant story here when you let go of what you liked or hate and focus on what is presented to us. 'Cause this book is a tragedy. Throughout the whole book, you know something is going to happen. A cataclysm, and people are going to get what has been coming to them. And then it happens. And it's one of the saddest moments I have ever read. The last chapter is truly heart-wrenching. You wish for something better, but in your heart and mind, you know that it would be phony. I would love for a happy ending, for people to get what was coming to them, and everything to be sunshine and rainbows. But life isn't like that. It's not a narrative that if you play your cards right, you will unlock the best ending. And when you ask yourself how could you have done different, it makes you wonder. 'Cause the solution isn't clean cut. There are too many factors, from personal to political, to fuse that have followed generations. None of that is more present than in the ending. The ending doesn't really resolve the lives of the characters. A lot of it is left in the air to your interpretation. 'Cause like life, there is no end. Life goes on, and the book ends at the point it wants to, leaving us both with a hope for some and despair for others. I will point out though that when JK was writing the book, she was originally going to call it Responsibility. Take that for what you will. So to wrap up, for the genre review, I give it an 8 out of 10. Is this book perfect? No. But name me one that is. It is still a really well written tale about a closed-minded town that in many ways not only reflects our own lives, but how we can improve if we put in the effort. My personal is a 9 out of 10. This is a true gem by one of my favorite authors. I'll proudly proclaim it a modern classic. It is a true testament of J.K. Rowling's writing and storytelling. Bravo, J.K. I tip my hat off for you. And overall, I give The Casual Vacancy a 7 out of 10. Some people will disagree due to an unlikable cast, but give it a chance. Let go of Harry Potter and look at this as a work on its own, like it should be. Well, for next week, we will be celebrating because I will have reached the double digits for the show. To celebrate, we are going to do our first theme month, and we'll be on one of my favorite subjects of all time. Till next time, have a nice day.